All right, so let's get going. So welcome everybody to the webinar on how to kick ass at public speaking. I'm excited here to help you, give you 9 good ways for you to improve your presentation skills and really build things up. And again, quick shout out to Diana and the team at Beautiful.AI. Basically, they have, I'm a big visual guy too. I use PowerPoint, and what they have now is they have a new cloud tool that designs presentations for you in real time, and it makes it like 10 times faster to create a presentation, ensuring it always looks professional. And the basic plan is free, and you can sign up at Beautiful.AI or wait for the email you're going to get after the webinar. So check that out. That's fantastic. So let me talk a bit about myself in terms of who I am and what I'm doing. And Dan, you can go to the next slide, I think. Agenda for today. So a bit of an introduction of who I am and what I bring to the table. I'm going to talk about why public speaking skills are important to you. And we're going to get into the 9 easy ways to kick ass at public speaking. And finally, the 5 public speaking mistakes to avoid. And then there's the open mic access piece where it's Q&A. You can ask me any question you want. So if you have questions, you can either A, put them in the chat box and we'll track them as we go through, or you can think of them as we go along, write them down on a piece of paper and then at the very end start asking the questions. So it's up to you, but we definitely want you to ask as many questions as you can. All right. And so let's keep going. Next slide. And I already thanked the sponsor, but you can see now how beautiful things are because they do some really amazing stuff with all their customizable slides and diagrams and timelines. And Beautiful.AI is a really cool new cloud tool to help you with design the presentation. So very excited about how they do it and how they put this together. So thank you actually, Diane and team, for helping me make this presentation look so incredibly beautiful, clean, and simple. And hopefully you guys will be cool with that. So a bit about me. I'm a family man, right? So I am a professional speaker. I've been doing it for 14 years. I've traveled around the world to conferences, to companies, to schools, universities, and colleges to talk about things like leadership and presentation skills, storytelling, personal branding, entrepreneurship, just all kinds of stuff around leadership, public speaking, personal branding, and networking. And that's what I'm really big on. And so for me, the reason why it's something that I think I can help you is because number one, I've done 5 TEDxTalks. I've been named one of Inc. Magazine's top 100 leadership speakers next to people like Richard Branson and Bernie Brown and John Maxwell. I'm I've been a professional speaker, and I also am an executive coach where I help people with their speaking and building their speaker confidence. So it's something that I'm very passionate about. And so for me, coming in here to deliver all these this talk on how to deliver great speeches and great presentations, no matter where you are, that's really why I'm here. And hopefully, I'm looking forward to actually helping you all. And again, I'm a family man, so the hardest audience of my life are my kids, to try to motivate them to get to do what I want. But you know what? It's something that's important to me, so I thought, but I have fun. And just like you guys, I'm having fun delivering this presentation. And hopefully you guys join with me to ask as many questions you can and to gain from the insights that we're going to share today. All right, let's go to the next slide. So let's talk about the truth about public speaking skills. I mean, the truth is they are important. In fact, I'll give you the standard thing that there are 2 golden rules in life, 2 certainties in life. They say death and taxes, right? But I'm going to give you 2 more. You are always dealing with people, and you are always delivering presentations. So always dealing with people. There's people at work, at school, at home, your friends, at the marketplace, in transit, on the bus. Everywhere you go, there are people. And number 2, you're always making presentations. At work, you're talking about the 3rd quarter results. At school, you're making a presentation in your economics class. With your friends, you're trying to convince your friends, let's go see this amazing movie, guys. Marvel's Avengers, so good. Go see it. You're talking to your parents, Mom and Dad, can I borrow the car? Or can I borrow some money? These are presentations you're making all the time. And so it's inherent upon you to become better at public speaking. And public speaking skills are so critical to professional development. I mean, having strong public speaking skills not only helps your personal development and your brand and ultimately your career, but it helps you communicate in a way that gets you the results that you want. Whether you're trying to raise money or trying to mobilize a team to reach a goal or recruit people for a resource for a new passion project. So it's important for you to understand that public speaking is so critical to your success, both professionally and personally. Okay, next slide. So let's start off with the first of our 9 big tips today, right? So step number 1 is to focus on one main message for your entire presentation. The truth is that most people can't take away everything you're going to say. Even in this presentation, I'm going to sum up what we talked about because, again, I want to make sure that, and that's why people want replays because, again, it's hard to remember everything. So when I think about a presentation, whether it's 30 minutes, 1 hour, even a whole day, what is the main thing I want to get across? It's I want you to use storytelling. I want you to network more authentically. I want you to leverage personal branding, invest in your life. These are like takeaways I might have for an entire presentation. So that's something that I would do when it comes to helping you, become a better speaker. So what I typically do for my presentation, I'll choose a main theme and then commit to a maximum of 3 takeaways with an action step for each one. I usually start with a storyboard and I get myself organized. I lay out the slides so I know exactly how I want my presentation to look. And then I collect the content. I choose the best smart slide templates from each subtopic and ensure I'm making my point. And then oftentimes, once I have the content on the slides, I'll then actually focus on the design of the slide. And that's usually where I'll leave Beautiful.AI to handle for me because they'll make it all nice and pretty and organized. But I come up with all the text and stuff. So what's an action step for you that you can do today? Go back to the previous slide, please. There we go, action step 1. So what's the first action step for you? Well, start by writing down the main topic for your presentation in 1 sentence. In fact, if any of you actually present now, why don't you type in the chat box right now, what is something you present about? Just give me the topic. And it shouldn't be more than like 7 words, okay? Keep it short and sweet. What exactly is the topic you present on? Put in the chat box, because I want to see what some of those things are. But when you do this, put together your main presentation topic in 1 sentence, then outline the 3 subtopics that relate to the main topic. And you can apply the action steps to each subtopic or the main takeaway. And then use this as a framework for your presentation. All right, let me just see if I want to see what people are saying around their. Are people putting stuff in there? Because I want to see what they have for their what they're putting out. Okay, so engagement, persuasion, how to trust others. Okay, I see some good stuff here. Whoa, power of small rural libraries, AI and ethics. Wow, these are really amazing stuff. Okay, mental health and substance use, crisis relations. Okay, these are amazing, diverse topics. I love this. Okay, thanks for sharing, guys. All right, so let's go to number 2. Next slide, please. Okay, so number 2 is get to know your audience. So the number 1 rule for presenting anything is to know who your audience is and to serve them with great value. And again, a perfect example, I just talked about it earlier today. I'm a big flaming extrovert, okay? Super high energy, loud guy. If I'm talking to a room full of introverts, I will quiet down and win them in other ways. I don't have to be loud and boisterous. It's a turnoff for them. I need to talk in a manner and in a way that gets their attention. Now, I can still use my energy, and that's fine. I'll probably even address it. I'll say, hey, well, I'm not an introvert, but I want to be mindful of your experience and what you're all about. And by doing that, I actually can do a much better job of relating to them. So doing the research on your audience and understanding who they are is really critical. So research who they are, figure out what they want to learn from you. Before a talk or a webinar or a presentation, I chat with my work colleagues about what they're hoping to get from my speech. I'll sometimes even talk to the audience before I even go on stage. I'll understand the various perspectives on the subject they have. I'll also try to talk to members of the audience, like, on site before I go on, ask them questions like, what are some of the things you're looking for when it comes to this topic? What are some of the things you're hoping to learn from me? And if they don't make sense to weave into the body of the presentation, then I address them usually at the end of the Q&A. I'll often say, okay, I'm now going to open up the mic to anyone that has a question that they just want answered. Just raise your hands, and I'll even say one question I'll start with was actually posed before I presented. Rick, remember we talked about this? I met you in the lobby, and he asked, this sometimes helps, and X, Y, Z. And this actually helps to loosen up people enough to raise even more hands. So that's what you want. You want the questions. The questions are where the nuggets and the really golden gems show up from your presentation. So if we're gonna, so you always leave time for Q&A at the end of presentation. It's so important to do that. I find that's where the golden nuggets show up. So what's the action step? Next slide. The action step for you is, I want you to ask 2 or 3 questions in advance to address in the Q&A. Now, if you want to collect more, great, but 2 or 3. Think about what they are, and if there's one you like, ask the person that you talk to chime in and ask her during your presentation or during your Q&A. And here are some good examples of questions that people might ask. How can I calm my nerves right before my presentation? That's something I get all the time. What do I do personally? I do jumping jacks. I move around, I do a little bit of a dance. What mind tweaks have been proven to help the public speaking performance? Should I practice in front of a mirror, or is a live small audience better? These are all really great questions that we probably could even answer in this presentation, but things that I can address at the end if you really want me to share. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So here we're going to look at the step number 3, looking at this SDCS method of storytelling. And what this really is it's a structure to help you provide a framework for your speech. And the idea here is to provide a well-rounded, organized script. So story, you start with a personal story about who you are and what it's all about. Data, cite respected data sets and statistics for proof. C, case study. Give a real example of drive results. And then S, summarize. Review each subtopic and repeat the main message. And the idea here is that the anecdotes that you use are huge for storytelling. They bring your message to life. The data and the case study will then will identify, information that makes it more convincing from a scientific standpoint. And then of course the case study and the summary will actually drive results and take home the main takeaways that the audience is getting from you. So these are all really, really cool to do. So make sure SDCS method, story, data, case study, summarize. That's what I do in almost every one of my talks. If you watch my TEDx talk, that's exactly what I'm doing. So next slide. In terms of an action step for you, I want you to come up with 3 stories from your life that relate to your subtopics. And that's a really good question, right? Is there a story from your real life that relates to your subtopics? Some of you talked about artificial intelligence. Some of you talked about substance abuse. I'd love to see if some of your stories of your life can relate to this. Because in all my talks about personal branding, networking, public speaking, and social media, I share stories from my real life, and that makes it more authentic and it makes it more relatable. Let's go to the next slide. So another big thing is to think teacher, not speaker. Now, one of the biggest challenges for a lot of people is that, well, oh no, I have to speak like the best leaders, business leaders, politicians, motivational speakers out there, and I'm not the best out there. And you know what? You don't have to be the best, right? You have to see yourself as a teacher, not a speaker. You don't have to be Bill Gates or Michelle Obama to be a good public speaker. You just have to teach the audience something they didn't know before. So that's a big mindset shift, right? And it's one that's going to help you focus on what's important about your presentation. And it also helps you, shift you to being more relaxed because, what value and what kind of thing do I really want to teach these people? And again, assuming that you are the knowledgeable person, you're the authority. They brought you in for a reason. Change your mindset to know that, listen, you are here to teach and offer value. And if you think of that as a teacher, you stop worrying about the dynamics and the excitement and the pizzazz and the sizzle and all that kind of stuff. Just be a teacher. And if you take a tip from some of the best teachers out there, and you start with asking your audience a few questions to gauge kind of what they really want to learn, that also helps as an easy way to lighten up the crowd and connect with their audience. It also helps if you come across as thoughtful and open. Often I'll ask for a show of hands, poll the audience, warm them up with a joke. If you're good at humor, make sure you get the feedback on your humor. But it's important to try to find a way to just set the stage that I'm here to teach something. I hope you're going to listen. So next slide. So what action step can we do for you? Well, what we're going to do is maybe do like a visualization exercise, right, to help you shift from speaking to teaching, right? So one of the things you can do is you can close your eyes and think of your favorite teacher and how they would approach your subject. So I think about my favorite math teacher, Mrs. Curry, back in grade 11 and 12. And right away, she would just come up and start asking some really interesting questions with people and start engaging us in a more personal level. Assume the students in the crowd don't know much about it and are eager to learn. Don't worry about the naysayers or the grumpy gusses that are in the audience. Focus on the ones who really want to learn. And then apply this new teacher mindset when you're addressing real audience, right? So if you take the time to outline the takeaways you want your audience to have at the end of the presentation, you can shift your mindset to put your audience first, right? Think of your favorite teacher, how they approach the subject, and then be the teacher that you want to be. Let's go to the next one. All right, number 5. So using strong visuals. I cannot tell you how powerful it is to use the visuals that make your presentation speak. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Absolutely. They say far more than you are ever going to say on that stage, no matter how big that stage is, no matter how many people there are. So visual can really be a compelling way to showcase. Like in this visual right here, this is showcasing an incredible amount of joy and something you wish you could be doing and be able to feel and express. Like the joy of these kids playing with this water. It looks amazing. I want to jump in and be part of this. And you can actually use visuals all the time. In fact, when I present, I have visuals in almost every single slide to really make it stand out. So strong visual storytelling with high quality imagery not only helps influence and persuade your audience, but it also emphasizes specific points you want to make that correspond to that image or the graph or the statistic. You can bring those things to real time with photography, videos, graphics, and it makes the presentation more engaging and a more dynamic experience. And therefore, it makes it more memorable because that's what you want. You want people to remember what you talked about. And again, this is where Beautiful.AI comes in. If you haven't tried already, you can sign up for their free basic plan, which includes about nearly 1 million free professional photos, icons, and logos you can quickly use with a simple click. And it makes your presentation look far more professional the way this one looks so beautiful. So let's start next slide, the action step here. So again, for each slide, I want you to think about what emotion you want your audience to experience or feel for that subtopic. Then assign a photograph, an icon, or graphic concept to that emotion. So example, if I want to feel motivation, that slide of that woman climbing those rocks, that's motivation. Creativity, the colors and the painting, that really makes you think. Confidence, the smile. This person's smiling so much, even with whatever the heck that is on their head, right? So like they're confident. I've got a fruit basket in my head, but I don't care. I'm confident. So that's awesome. It sets the stage and sets you apart. So I think that's great. Let's go to number 6. And again, if you have questions about what we're talking about, please put them in the chat box and ask your questions. We'll get to every single one at the very end of the presentation. All right. I mean, we're 5 through, so I want to make sure we address that. So let's go to number 6, which is you have to learn what it means to have presence or on stage or in front of the crowd. Having stage presence is huge. Now, a lot of people, get intimidated by this because, maybe they're small or they're worried about their body image or they're body conscious. But the truth is, it doesn't matter whether you're a big guy like me or a small person. I've seen the smallest people in the world create huge presence and impact, right? You all have energy, and your energy will present itself in your stance, in your smile, in your clothes, how you walk, how you talk. But the truth is, body language is 70% of the message. So if your hands folded in front of you or hands behind you, or looking down or not smiling, these are things that are going to set you apart. 70% of the message is communicated with your body language. So it's important for you to make sure you understand that, right? So the words you say, the tone you use are important. How you present yourself, smiling, open stance, wide legs, shoulders back, etc. They communicate confidence. Walk around, walk to the edge of the stage and connect with people. Make eye contact. When people are confident in you, they listen and they learn, right? And we also, there's also a really cool guide from Toastmasters to help with public speaking. There's lots of other ones out there you can look at. I even have a confidence program on how to get confidence as a speaker in 7 days. So these are things you need to work on to help you get there. Next slide. So let's go to the action steps, right? So one of the things you can do is you can record your practice session and play it back on mute and see what you look like just without the sound. Your smartphone, I have my smartphone, it's like the best thing in the world for you to do this. So you can deliver your presentation or talk in front of an audience, close friends and family members, get their feedback, or you can set up a video recorder to capture your practice session. Play the recording back on mute so you can focus on whether or not you like your posture or not your words, because your posture is more powerful actually than the message. It's 70%, right? And again, there's a guide that we can help you on public speaking that we'll send you. We'll send you in the emails afterwards. All right. Let's go to the next slide. Step number 7, use stats and data to strengthen your message. So again, I talk about personal storytelling. I talk about my life, and you may talk about here's what I want you to do, what I want you to learn. But the data is also going to help you, okay? And data and stats is strengthen your message. And even here we have a study that says 70% of professionals agree that strong presentation skills are critical for career success, according to Forbes research survey. So and citing a verified statistic is a powerful way to drive a point home, like boom. So source data that supports your message, but only reports from respectable research firms or consultative institutions that should make the cut. People can see through the fluff. You can't be like, well, I quoted this thing from this blogger. That's not good enough, okay? Make sure it's really legit stuff. And again, this one here is an example I gave a recent talk about giving better presentations. I said, what? I said, why do you need to have a kick-ass presentation? Because results from here says 70% in Forbes says this. 70% of professionals agree that strong presentation skills are critical for career success, right? Now that's motivating, if you ask me. And so let's go to the action step. Next slide. So for each of your subtopics, you got to choose a compelling and verified data point, right? Think about the key message of your talk, right? And find some proven stats that directly relate to that. That's compelling. One stat I use a lot is actually email marketing. I'll say, well, if you want to be a better network, you got to follow up. And email marketing is 4,000 times more effective than regular marketing. So email marketing is such a really important thing to do versus social media. Or 5 to 7 times on social media, you can be told something before they actually take action. So these are all stats that you can use all the time. So for example, networking uses 92% of people that network get results. Or video content. One of my favorite video content stats is a 1-minute video is worth 1.8 million words, according to Forrester's research, right? So there's stats here that you can use, but also stats in your presentation that make it far more compelling. All right? Let's go to the next one. Okay, so number 8. This is about embracing your nerves. Now, nerves are actually a good thing, right? But like we all get nerves. We're all human, right? Because we care. And so nerves are something that show that you care. So embrace your nerves. Tell yourself, I care. I want to do my best. I want people to get value from what I'm talking about. In other words, what I want you to do is I want you to focus on the positives around the nervous energy. If you're feeling panicky, envision your most confident, cool, calm, collected self on stage. Basically, it's a visualization trick. Then become that visualized version of yourself in reality when you step foot on stage. I'll give you a quick story. When I did my first TEDx talk of the 5 I've done, I was super nervous. But I was backstage and I was walking back and forth, pacing. And the first thing I did is I started moving my shoulders, started dancing around because I'm trying to get my energy up. And then I saw a teddy bear. And I was like, wow, why is there a teddy bear backstage? And I asked someone, hey, can I borrow the teddy bear? And they said, sure. So I took the teddy bear and I was hugging it. I was squeezing because it was calming me down because I was so nervous because my first TEDx talk, the first video, it's a big deal. I want to do the best I can. I was talking about the 5 C's of connection. And I took that bear with me on stage. And before I started my TEDx talk, I hugged the bear, put it on the table, and then I started my talk. And now years later, people think that I planned that, but it was completely impromptu. I never planned it. And it worked perfectly for that TED talk. So what's the action step here? Go to the next slide. The action step here is, come up with a ritual that works for you, right? There are different activities that calm your nerves. You could do a little dance before you get on stage. You can jump, do a quick 2-step. Anyone likes to dance a 2-step or do a jumping jack, some dance moves. These are all things that work for whoever they are. But I mean, we know rock musicians do this. Some of the best speakers do this too. I have my own thing. I actually walk off. Usually behind there's a screen. I'll usually walk behind the screen back and forth, and I'll start to feel the energy of the audience before I go on stage. That's what I do. So there you go. Try that for yourself and let us know how it works. Next slide. So number 9, this is where we end the speech, right? So you want to have a call to action. Every single action or every single speech I have, as I said in step number 1, I have one main thing, one main takeaway. So what is it that I want the audience to do? I want them to do just one thing. I want you all to dive into your personal brand. I want you all to call me and book a call. I want you all to network better. I want you to, I want you to check out Beautiful.AI stuff. I want you to, there's different things that I might say for that call to action, right? You can have one, you can have several if you want, but typically have one main call to action, but always have that call to action. Be really clear on your objectives, be clear on your communication. It could be a URL they should visit, it could be a social media site, or when the next training session is going to be, right? So, I always, again, to reiterate, at the end of my speech, I always call my audience to action. I'll sometimes offer a gift to my website or free training to my networking mastery program, or a one-pager download of things like that, or additional content that provides value. I'll share my contact information, my social media handles. And then when I catch a break, I'm very diligent about responding to comments and emails that come through, as well as asking for candid feedback on my talk. Did my message come through? What did you take away from my session? It lets people know you really, really care. Let's go to the action step. So the action step here is review, based on your main message, draft 1 or 3 calls to action that determine which one will make the most impact. So review your main message, craft a call to action that directly relates to that. If your main message is X, your call to action should be X, Y, Z, right? So for example, here's some great examples. Join my new e-newsletter mailing list for weekly free tips and tricks. Participate in one of my online trainings that assist you through public speaking practice sessions. Visit my YouTube channel for more examples of best practice do's as well as don'ts to avoid. These are all things that are great calls to action. Now, we've covered the top 9 tips to really enhance your presentations. Let's talk about the bonus about things you should never do and avoiding these popular mistakes during your next public speaking opportunities. So, and again, there are many ways to fail public speaking, but one of the things that I want to share about are the worst ways to ruin a presentation or talk. So, number 1, do not read slides from your, don't read straight from your slides or script. Okay. I was one time watching a guy he was just reading his slides behind me, and I was like sitting there like, why don't you send me this deck and I'll read it on my own, because I have to sit here and listen to you who's actually reading it in a low energy sort of way. I can read it with more energy. Why are we even here? So never create a presentation full of words and read from it, or write a script for a speech and then stand on stage, look down, read from it. Like you can reference it. That's fine. You look at it for a few seconds. That's okay. But public speaking 101, you make sure that you are prepared to not read from your script or your slides. So what you do instead is you write an outline and you reference it casually here and there. You have a good understanding of your key points as well as cues as a reference to a point, or maybe a personal anecdote under each subtopic. Most public speakers don't get teleprompters, but that's better actually because it forces you to look up and make eye contact with your audience. You can riff a little bit more and really engage with them. And I can tell you, for me, like when I have a teleprompter, and I have before, I feel confined. You know, I like having. For me, my best speeches come with just a couple of notes, headlines, and I talk to those points. Now, one of the things you could do about this, make sure you review your slides, and if any of them has you reading more than one sentence to your audience, you may want to revise. You shouldn't have full sentences. You shouldn't have full sentences unless it's like a quote or something important that you're reading. Let's go to the next one. Another thing you should do is don't cram in too much content. Okay, this is something that I do. Okay, so I'll admit it. I often cram in too much content. You know, for an hour or a day, I'll put in so much stuff, and sometimes I'm giving the feedback. That was a lot of information. Now, how do I get around that? I typically have fantastic structure so people don't feel confused. I have transition slides and a lot of agenda and structure. Number two, I make sure I tell people at the beginning, I'm going to give you a lot of content. I'm going to give you these slides. But clarity, organization, and giving the content that they really need, leave them wanting more, right? So, you know, all those words and images in your presentation slides don't make you look smarter. It makes you look a bit disorganized and unfocused. So it's important to have a bit of clarity to make it beautiful. So break your ideas down into smaller bite-sized messages over several slides instead. This makes it easier to digest for your audience. If you're giving a talk without a presentation, this applies as well. Don't touch on too many points. You can't be like, okay, so here's my 17-step process or my 29-point plan. Like, whoa, 29 points, that's crazy. You know, 2, 3, 5, you know, 10, like that's the most you can do for any sort of thing like that. Keep it simple, stick to the main point, which goes all the way back to number one, focus on the one main topic. So what are things you can do about this in terms of not cramming? Review your presentation and identify the busy slides. There's always going to be a busy slide in your deck, and that's fine. Break them down maybe into 2 or 3 slides if you can. And let go of any slides that don't serve your main topic, right? Instead, put them in the appendix section if you must, especially if they're going to ask you a question. You say, oh, I actually have a slide prepared, and people love that kind of stuff. So you can totally do that. Let's go to the next one. Number 3, don't use jargon. Okay, avoid these using jargon. People if people use jargon that people don't understand, and again, it goes back to knowing your audience, right? Your audience won't understand if you use a bunch of industry acronyms or slang. And no, it doesn't make it look cool to speak over people's heads, right? They want to understand who you are. That does no good. So instead, dumb down the topics that are super nuanced and intricate so that you're speaking at their level of intelligence, right? So here's one thing you can do to make sure this doesn't happen. Next slide. Okay, so what you can do is rehearse in front of someone that's not in your industry and have them highlight or points or words they don't understand, because you want to make sure they're like, well, I didn't get that, or I didn't get that, or why'd you say that word? Why'd you say KTS? What's a KTS? I don't know. And so by saying that, you can help them understand and fix those things up and really clarify them in your presentation. Okay, next one. All right, don't make a ton of excuses. Oh, like, man, like people go, oh, sorry, I have a cold today. Oh, I'm so late, so sorry. What's wrong with me? Like, that's not how you win their confidence. Now, you can do it in a vulnerable way and in an honest way, but not to begin your talk. Okay, when you start your presentation by saying things like, sorry, my presentation sucks, or it's disorganized, or I'm running late, or I'm not sure why they asked me to present. Come on, you lose the confidence that people have in you and what you're about to say, which leads the audience to lose focus attention. They basically check out, they go back to their phones and scroll Facebook and Instagram. And if you're not keeping your audience's attention, then you haven't given a successful presentation. Okay, so what can we do about that? Next slide. So do say instead that you are honored and humbled by the opportunity and hope your audience learned something from you that you didn't already know. That's a great way to make sure you show that gratitude and show that love for the audience of what you're trying to do and why you're there. Later on, you could say something around the fact that maybe if someone said, you could say maybe that you were late and you apologize. Because if it's glaringly late, like if you were actually really were late that affected people, I think you should address it at some point, but not in the first 5 minutes. Do it later on when there's a moment of clarity and a chance for you to be more vulnerable and share a quick story. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And then finally, do not go over time. Nobody likes this. The audience doesn't like it. The organizers don't like it. And afterwards people don't like it because they're going to remember that you went over time because it screws up with people's schedules. Like for me, and you know, I make sure if I ever have to go over time, I ask the audience, listen, my time a lot is done. There's a few more things I want to say. If people are okay with me going on, I will. But I only usually do that for a workshop. I don't do that for a keynote. For a keynote, like I get off the stage as soon as possible, or a business presentation, right? Remember, the organizers of the event have a lot of specific amount of time for you on the purpose. So be respectful of the schedule and the time yourself before the main event. Err on the side of caution. If you're given an hour time slot, get your speech down to 50 minutes. I usually use the 80% rule. So I plan for 80% of my talk. If I'm given an hour, I plan, 80% of the time. If I give 20 minutes, I plan 16 minutes. The 80% of time works really well because you know what? We always talk longer than we realize. We always present longer than we realize. So what you should do is in terms of plan for 80% of the time you're given. Do a mock run and time yourself to make sure, right? If you go over time, remember the 10% rule because the 10% rule is how much over you're allowed to go. So 80% is what you plan. The rule for going over is 10% before they get upset. So if it's an hour presentation, you have basically an extra 6 minutes to go over. If you have like a 3-hour presentation, you can go over a little bit longer, maybe 15, 20 minutes. But that's kind of a general rule. You have to respect those rules and make sure you don't go over time and upset a lot of the people in the room and the organizers of the event. All right, next slide. And again, a lot of people that want to make great presentations and be the best they can be, I can tell you this, my friends, with great honesty, you don't have to be great to start. We have to start to be great. And what that means is you put in the effort, you put in the time, and some of you are already actually quite good or very good or quite great. But now how do we take that good to great? How do we take that great to legacy and impact and world class? And that's what I want to help you guys do with your speaking, no matter what it is, no matter what topic, no matter what kind of venue it is, whether it's a panel, whether it's a business meeting, whether it's in your cubicle with your manager, whether it's on stage for 1,000 people, or even a webinar like this. Next slide. So my call to action for you today is I want you to choose one of the 9 action steps and chat which one you will start with today. So we gave you 9 amazing ideas, right? So if we quickly review them, 1 was focus on the main topic. Number 2, get to know your audience. Number 3, use the SDCS method of storytelling. Number 4, think teacher, not speaker. Number 5, use strong visual clues. Number 6, have stage presence. Number 7, use the stats to add strength to your message. Number 8, embrace your nerves. Number 9, end with a call to action. So put in the chat box right now, which one are you going to start with today? I want to hear from everyone. Put it in there and let me know which one you're going to use the most or which one you use first, because I think that's going to be so important for us. Using strong visuals, good. That's awesome. The SDCS storytelling method, great. Thank you, Katie. That's good. People are putting some really good information here. That's good. We want to hear all your stuff. Identify the audience, SDC message, the main message. Okay, some good ones. We already have a top 3. Look at that, top 3. That's awesome. Glad to hear, guys. Okay, good. Keep it up. Keep it up. Now let's go to the next slide here. Next slide. Awesome. So just as a final thought, guys, I'm excited to be here to help you guys out. If you want to reach out to me for public speaking or leadership or all my work, you can find me everywhere on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. My website's called rayon.com. I also have a program called 7 Days of Speaker Confidence. I have a program called Speaker Mastermind. I have another program called How to Put Together a Speaker Video Reel. So I have a lot of speaker resources. I also do a live stream every day almost on LinkedIn in the morning, so you can check that out as well. And you can also check out all my content on YouTube and Google me. I'm everywhere. So I thank you for your time. I thank Beautiful.AI for letting me do this, for hosting and helping me put together some really kick-ass slides. And now we're gonna have Q&A. We're gonna have the questions to answer as many as we can. But please reach out to me, follow me, check out my stuff, DM me if you have any questions. And now let's get to the questions.
Thanks, Bobby. Really quickly, I did see in the chat that there were a few people asking for that link to the Toastmasters training. And I'm assuming that on your end, that hyperlink in the presentation wasn't clickable. But I will follow up with a link to that. And it will also live in the presentation that will be disseminated via email after the fact.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. So I'll leave it to you now to maybe moderate the questions and keep me focused because people are commenting a lot. So
sure.
Let's see what we got.
Let's see.
And you can fill in more questions too as you want, because we'll stick around and help you out as best we can, guys. Yeah, there's so many comments. We got that. So one question I see by Nancy Valent: will we be providing your presentation to be accessed again later? Yes, everyone who registered for this will get access to this replay. So that's perfect. You have access to it. Let's see. Some of them are more about people talking about their objectives, right, in the very beginning, but I'm not sure where the specific questions are. Again, if you have a question now, guys, this is the time for you to put it in here. Okay, I see one actually. Please give us the info to the course for confidence. Well, I can send that to, I'll send that to Diana and make sure they have that too. Yeah, it's a 7-day course for confidence. I'll send it to her and she can put that in the messaging as well. Okay. I see another question. That's Michael. Thank you. The anonymous attendee said the link to Toastmaster, which Diana did. Next one. When making a video, what's the ideal time length to keep people's attention? Well, it depends on where your audience, who your audience is, and where you're presenting, right? So, for example, if you're doing LinkedIn Live, they typically are 30 minutes long. If you're doing an Instagram video, right, 30 seconds to 45 seconds is really, really helpful. If you're doing a LinkedIn video to talk about yourself, usually the standard is around 1 to 2 minutes. Although again, you can still go long, you still go short, but that's the ideal length, depending what you're doing. Typically, a 1-minute video is to give that one big, quick tip thing, right? That's all it is. So it's the one thing. A longer video of like 3-4 minutes might be like a quick interview with somebody, or like 3 tips to network better, or 4 tips to speak better, things like that. And then a longer one, like 8 to 10 minutes, would be like one where you're really diving into something, or you're interviewing somebody much longer, more deeper. That's a more deeper type thing. All right.
Bobby, did you see the question that came in on speaking on a panel? I thought that was relevant. How can you apply public speaking tips?
Sure. I'm actually just scrolling through the slide. Where is it? Let me just go through the ones I see now, and then maybe if you look at that one. Because I see another one, I see one from Harish says, "Do you have a summary slide that you can show us?" Well, not exactly. We the presentation is really short. It's pretty short. It's only 27 slides, so it's quite summarized. But we kind of relayed the 9 tips and the five fails to avoid. So hopefully that's good. That will work well for you. I'm not sure we can create another slide that we can send out, Anna. That's something we can think about in terms of feedback. But we do appreciate you guys letting us know, summarizing everything on one slide. That's good. I see a question now by Katie. I teach 2 large lecture courses, 275 students each, and have a really hard time keeping them engaged and energized about the day's topic. Yeah, I know, because I teach at college and university as well, and it's very difficult. Any suggestion for active presenting strategy I could use in this situation? Well, there's a bunch of things. I mean, the quick thing that a lot of people do is they give participation marks for people who are engaging. That's one thing. But the second thing is, you have to relate to your audience. So when I look at students and stuff, I actually spend about 5 minutes of my time talking about the issues of the day, and just get them engaged about, what are some of the things that are going on in the world, talking about movies or music or culture, politics, business, like really technology, and people really get engaged that way. The other thing I think about is to, within your presentation, ask questions, very specific. Say, okay, so based on what I just said, who here can tell me this? That question, it shows that you're going to ask questions regardless, and they need to be on the ball to answer those questions. Otherwise, they're going to look bad. And that's another way to keep them energized. The other thing to keep in mind is timing. Like if you have a 3-hour lecture course, so I used to teach a 3-hour course. I knew that at a certain point, people are losing focus. So I would actually specifically try to get them back on track every 20, 30 minutes and just completely break away from what I'm talking about, and then say, okay, so how are we all doing, guys? What's going on? Okay, great. Any questions so far? No? Okay. And then break away, because they get really bored. And, I'll take a break in the middle, and then same thing in between. I'll have quick, short breaks. These are all things you can do to get them more energized. The other thing you do, actually, and the last thing I'll say about this question before I move on, is there's often people in your class who are really good at asking questions and facilitating discussion. You should talk to them after class and say, listen, I'm trying to get more engagement from not the deadbeats, but the people who are not engaging. Feel free to please engage more and answer questions as well. Take on questions. I want to create more interactive. And then finally, the last tip I'll give you is that you cannot get everyone on board, there's always going to be the bottom 10% that don't care. So forget about that. So that means there's going to be 30 people in your class that you should not spend any time on. It's too exhausting to try to get them on board with everybody else. So don't focus on them at all. Let's see. Please give us the info of the course of confidence. Okay, we said that already. This was great. Thank you. How do you handle tough questions during a presentation? Well, I mean, how do you handle tough questions? Well, tough questions, if you know the answer, I mean, be honest. If you don't know the answer, be honest. But you can't do it all the time. So, one is you have to anticipate questions before you do any sort of topic. So make sure you anticipate what the questions are going to be. But tough questions, first off, I think you should applaud and give gratitude to the questioner. Say, wow, that's a great question and very tough to answer, but let me give it a try. Or I'll say, great question. Thanks so much for answering that one. I think it's a difficult one to answer. Here's what I've tried, but I don't really have the answer right now. Let me get back to you and find out more about this. But again, you can only do that once. If you can't answer a question more than once, then they're going to start questioning your ability. But I'll always applaud them for asking the question. I'll give them my take. I'll be honest about the fact that, I haven't done the research or if I'm missing something, but, I think it's something that we should all look into. So that to me is a really important thing.
Hey, Bobby.
Yeah.
There's a question that asks, this was great. Thank you. I speak a lot, but mainly on panels. How would your advice apply to speaking on panels? I thought that was a really good question.
Yeah, I see that by Lorraine. So in terms of speaking on panels are actually easier because you just speak off the cuff. You don't have to prepare so much. But a lot of panelists get nervous, so they prepare talking points. So the number one thing you need to understand for talking to a panel is make sure the moderator has given you the questions going to ask so you can prepare in advance. That's number one. Number two, for each question that's going to be asked, you need to prepare a couple of short answers that you can speak to and have some stories. Number three, you have to anticipate questions from the audience because you're not going to have them all. Because usually when a moderator gives you, for a panel, gives you questions, they have a list of 10 that they never get to, all of them, and they take questions from the audience. So you have to be willing to be really casual and be able to be willing to talk about it. One tip, if you're nervous about speaking on a panel or speaking first, is if there's other panelists, let someone go first and you can go second, right? Or as they're asking the question, think about what you want to answer and how you want to answer it. But the difference is that in a panel, you're sitting there. So your energy comes from your hands, the energy comes from your smile, the energy comes from the tone of your voice. Your body language still is important when you're on a panel, right? If you lean forward and you engage, like, okay, wow, this person really cares about what I have to say. These are things you can do to make those panels work much, much better for you. Next question, Diana, you want to?
Yes, I would say that we have time for maybe one more. And then what I will do, thank you all so much for chatting in. We've had such great participation that we're not going to get to all these questions. But Bobby, if it's okay with you, I was going to suggest them tweeting you those questions that you didn't have a chance to respond to. And I can go back to your Twitter handle, but potentially they could engage with you there. Really, really wonderful questions.
Well, I'm going to say actually something different, if I may. I'm going to say actually, if you go to my LinkedIn profile on my page, and I always do a live stream, go in there and ask me a question. That's the best way because I'm going to see it and I'll answer that question for you. I'll tweet, but if you want to tweet too, that's totally cool. Which question are we going to answer? Some of them I can.
I was going to say, how would you approach? I like this one. We know that you're kind of a bigger stage. You're at a place in your career where you're presenting to larger audiences. But for people that are starting with smaller audiences, could you offer any adjustments for engaging with a smaller audience, maybe around personalization or?
Sure. I mean, so usually with a smaller audience, it's at work and it's a business presentation for people you know. So again, the personalization is really important. You can leverage your team to get feedback on what you're going to talk about so you can prepare better. Because when I prepare for a big keynote, I can't talk to the audience before I get there usually because I don't know who they are. But in a business meeting or a small event, you can actually talk to people before and get some information from them to actually then see what they think about what you're going to talk about. That's one thing. The second thing, of course, is that you're able to use jargon, you're able to use case studies, you're able to use examples from work, from the business that they totally get and understand. And so from that aspect, you can actually do a much better job of answering. And the third thing really is the energy is different, right? So on stage, you're in front of all these people, but here it's more of a casual conversation with people. Again, body language, lean in, smile. These are your friends, these are your colleagues, right? you don't have to be as formal as you would be, let's say, on a stage or presenting a pitch to bankers or financial investors. This is more for regular people. You share that data and be casual and be open to questions and keep it like, informal and back and forth. And I think that's going to make it more impactful than you just doing a presentation for 30 minutes and then, okay, questions. Usually what happens when you do that, there's no questions. You actually want to make it engaging, so there's questions throughout to really, take the presentation on a journey that everyone can follow. That would be my tips for that. So many questions now, oh my gosh.
All right, we're pretty much at time.
Yeah.
So thank you, Bobby, again so much. And
My pleasure.
we appreciate your insights. I know I just learned a ton. I'm going to digest all of that information and review the presentation one more time. And I'm sure I'll have additional questions for you as well. Just so everyone that's tuning in is informed, there will be a corresponding article that Bobby is participating in that will live on our blog.
Yeah.
So if you haven't yet signed up at Beautiful.AI, please go ahead and do that, and you will receive a link to the blog with a summary of all these steps, as well as the video recording and a link to the presentation. Anyone that registered for this webinar should also receive an email with the video recording and link to the presentation. And as always, if you have any questions, please reach out to marketing@Beautiful.AI, or just ping us on any of our social channels. We're on all the major ones. And we look forward to hearing from you. We really welcome any critical feedback that you have, because we'd like to continue to improve these. So we hope that you learned something. I know I did. And Bobby, thank you again so much for hosting this today.
My pleasure. Happy to help you guys out. And guys, get out there and ask the questions and get engaged. And we're here to help you. That's why we're here. So yeah, keep it going.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.